What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of album number 11 by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, an alternative rock and funk rock band from Los Angeles, California. They've been around since the early 1980s, and this new record is called The Getaway. We're once again seeing a long gap in between studio albums, from Stadium Arcadium to I'm With You, 5 years, and once again 5 years since I'm With You to The Getaway. And I'm With You did need some improving upon. I mean, I can play devil's advocate to a certain extent, I suppose. I understand people who didn't really care for the record, felt like they were locked in with a stalemate there, weren't moving forward with their sound, but they also had some great tracks on there. Rain Dance Maggie, great lead-off single, I thought, very bass heavy. I like the kind of groove that song fell into. Annie Wants a Baby, I mean, of course, probably my favorite song on there, Brendan's Death Song. I don't hear people talking about the record a whole lot, and I understand, I guess, why it wasn't as commercially successful. The Chili Peppers themselves were kind of disappointed with it, so they wanted to move forward with a new sound. They were locked in with the same producer for a very, very long time. I love Rick Rubin, but you've got to mix it up sometimes. You can't just work with the same person over and over again, as comfortable as you may be with them. As a result, I feel like your music can become kind of predictable, and that's what happened with the Chili Peppers and Rick Rubin. This time around, they worked with one of my favorite modern producers, Brian Burton, aka Danger Mouse, who's produced for the likes of obviously his own groups like Broken Bells, Gnarls Barkley, and other groups as well, and albums that I fucking love, like Portugal the Man's Evil Friends, El Camino by the Black Keys. He's done a lot of great work, and there's some questionable moments in his discography that I just don't care for. I don't feel like he meshes with the artist quite as well, and I will admit that The Getaway by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, his production style and choices here, what he wanted the band to do, I didn't exactly mesh with it at first. It wasn't clicking. I didn't see it as the band firing on all cylinders. But probably about 10 lessons deep into this thing at this point, it's something that I've had to listen to and digest a whole lot more than usual. I'm starting to see what they were going for here. Brian Burton has a much more hands-on approach in the studio, actually making them scrap all of their tracks that they initially had, and then just kind of writing them over with him in the studio. As a result, we get keyboards popping up on a lot of these songs, swirling synths, everything from, like, I would say disco to like dub, something that you would hear maybe on a Sublime record or other records in like the late 90s, or if you're Sublime with Rome, you're still trying to channel it at this point. It's just weird to hear those kind of aspects popping up on a Chili Peppers record, and I would say that Josh Klinghoffer, the guitarist of this band at this point, for Shanti no longer being with them, obviously, and I would say his style kind of takes on more of like a technical approach. It's not so much that it's furious and just in your face, it's just that these tracks get the point across by being melodic, smart lyrically, and obviously kind of from a different point of view, trying things from a different angle. I wouldn't say this is so much of a funk rock record as it is just an alternative piece that shows the Chili Peppers what they can be, showing a different side of themselves. Flea, not to say that he doesn't shine as a bassist here, because that would be an understatement. That would be selling this album short. There's a lot of great bass parts. I mean, you could see that right off the bat with the lead single Dark Necessities, and obviously We Turn Red, the third single off of this thing. Another one that just feels like they're kind of going back to some older styles, but then adding in some new flair. And that's what I like about this album. They actually managed to step things up from their last record. I don't think that this album is perfect by any means, but I really do enjoy a good chunk of it. I think the synthesizers were a nice touch on some of the tracks, but they can often be a bit distracting and a little bit too dramatic for me. Go Robot, prime example. One of my least favorite songs here, if I'm being quite honest. It seems like it's another breakup song. I would say that this record is about half and half, with like breakup songs and songs covering other topics. I was hoping they would just kind of either go for an entire album full of it, because we get songs like back to back, like The Longest Wave, that is very Portugal the Man influenced, especially in the guitar department. I'm not complaining there, I just think it sounds fantastic, especially as the chorus kind of washes over us there. And then Goodbye Angels, another guitar-driven track that sees him kind of tearing into his ex-girlfriend, which happens to be a model, and there's a lot of songs written about her, but it just kind of felt like the flow got messed with, because we would dip into songs like We Turn Red or then Feasting on Flowers, which are both songs that I think are great, but they kind of stray lyrically from, I guess, what he was doing, and then he'll jump back into it on like tracks that follow. Now, in terms of the lyrical content regarding the breakup, I think that it was a pretty rough patch in Anthony Kiedis' life. Obviously, being a former drug addict, that inspired a lot of his writing here, I feel like, and Dark Necessities kind of calls to mind him going back to that state of mind, thinking about, you know, you might think that you know me, but you don't know exactly what's going on in my mind, the constant temptations, wanting to maybe go back and just give in for one more, you know, I believe it was heroin that he was addicted to, just one more hit, one more shoot of the needle, etc. And Dark Necessities, as a result, just really wins as a song because it's not too on the nose. Like, some of these tracks almost are in terms of like getting the relationship agenda and propaganda out there. And even the opening title track on this record seems to do a better job of being subtle. That is a song that did not hit me at first. In fact, I didn't really care for the piano parts on there. It felt a little bit off. I didn't care for the way that the chorus hit. But as I listened to it more and more and started to decipher the lyrics and interpret what they might possibly be about, and just this relationship that wasn't meant to be, the difference in age between Kiedis and his at the time girlfriend, and it was a big age difference, him being in his 50s and her just being 19, now 22, of course 19 whenever they first started dating, it made for kind of a frustrating, I guess, experience for Kiedis, and also a lot of great lyrical content here for us. I think in terms of that, I think he's at his strongest whenever he's a little bit reflective, but at the same time trying to get past it. And we see that on moments like Sick Love, where he knows that things just weren't healthy. It wasn't meant to be. And The Longest Wave, Goodbye Angel, we see a couple of tracks just kind of right in that little spot together that feature a lot of organic instrumentation. It feels very stripped down and raw in places, but it can also hit hard when the guitars actually do pop up, and the bass lines that kind of go in the background, and the piano on Sick Love just being fantastic. Who else plays the piano on that track other than Sir Elton John himself? I love it when Elton John teams up with modern rock artists like obviously Red Hot Chili Peppers, Queens of the Stone Age, just to make amazing music. Even Fall Out Boy, I love all of the collaborations he's done. It always manages to come off in a very entertaining way. I just wish he had gotten the spotlight, maybe a little bit of a guest vocal spot here, but I'll take what I can get. The Dreams of a Samurai, another one that just kind of blew me away in the piano department. I love how everything comes through with kind of the pedal effects. There's a lot of distortion, kind of like a wall of noise hitting you right at the end of this record, and it's an epic closer. You think of like a 6-minute long song that's going to end your album. Dreams of a Samurai, possibly my favorite song on the album. There's definitely some competition, but this one puts up a fight in the best way. It's got everything from Anthony once again kind of reflecting on the demise and burnout of the relationship and seeing just how sick in the head it made him at some points, how frustrated, and how he knew he would lie to himself, he would lie to her just to keep things going, and that's addressed several times throughout this record. But once again, he's kind of just summing it all up, and I love the way that it goes out with just a huge bang. Every member seems to be firing here, and obviously Chad Smith, the drummer, getting a big part on this track. That was lacking in places, I feel like, but there's certain tracks that just really let him shine, and it makes it all worth it. Kiedis' romantic life was not the only inspiration for lyrics here. We Turn Red saw the band kind of taking on our nation and the state of things, how everything feels fake, and we're just caring about personal possessions and how much more we can gain, and it's all done in kind of a sarcastic manner. I like how Kiedis kind of channels that kind of MC vibe, once again, kind of rap talking over it. That's really the only track where we see that prominently used. We obviously see singing as well. Flea with his big bass line on that track in particular. I love the way that the song goes out. It's just a big thumping, slapping bass, and it sounds perfect. That's one song, obviously, where they mix things up in the lyrical department, but not only was his romantic life used in terms of relationships, but his relationship with his father was tackled on the next to last track on this record, The Hunter. I have kind of hinted at some of my criticisms of this record, but I'm going to go ahead and address some of them head on here. I mean, the album does hit a lull in places. There's tracks where Kiedis just seems a little bit too uninterested in terms of his vocal performance and some of the lyrical content. While it starts off interesting, maybe at the beginning of the record, especially whenever he's talking about this relationship gone sour, it just kind of bleeds over into some of the other tracks, and I don't feel like it's that fresh, and it brings down the overall enjoyment of some of these tracks for me. I mean, Flea obviously doing a great job kind of backing some of these tracks. I don't feel like maybe he got enough of the spotlight, and hence like the funk being gone, I guess, from some of their music, I suppose. But obviously Klinghoffer adding something with his new guitar approach, and the keys kind of adding a disco-y effect to some of these tracks. I mean, I think they sound fantastic on tracks like Goodbye Angels and swirling in with The Longest Wave, and even Dark Necessities coming in on the bridge of that track in just a monstrous way, a huge win. Dark Necessities is a phenomenal song, but unfortunately, it just kind of trickles from time to time. There's moments here, especially towards the end of the album, where I feel like I've heard some of these songs before. Detroit feels like it could have fit on maybe one of their albums from the late 90s, early 2000s, and that keeps me from fully getting into it and engaging with it. And I do see that as kind of being a track that's kind of stuck in between two that I really enjoy. Feasting on the Flowers, which is quite possibly like one of my two favorite songs on this record. I see it as being like a song about death in general, and obviously their guitarist that died in 1988, a huge loss for Kiedis, and also kind of a saving grace for him that saw him getting over his drug addiction. He did have a couple of relapses, if I'm not mistaken, but for the most part he stayed clean since, I believe, like the late 80s, early 90s. This Ticonderoga is on the other side of Detroit, and I see that as being one that's, again, on the experimental side of things. Brian Burton played a big hand there, and I don't think that it's going to be a favorite for a lot of people. I mean, it starts off a little bit more furious. It's got a weird back and forth pace to it. It starts off a little bit faster with some drums and Kiedis being a little bit more in the spotlight and engaging with the vocals. And then it kind of slows down. It's got these weird piano trickles that you're going to see on this track, almost like a movie soundtrack or something like that. And it's a little bit strange. I don't know how well it works. I'm a little bit split on the track, but I'd be really curious to see what you guys are thinking of this one especially. The Chili Peppers, along with producer and co-writer Danger Mouse, have cooked up a batch of interesting songs here. Some of them great, some of them good, and some of them missing the mark. Is it better than their last album as a whole? I say definitely a step forward and some progression, some things that we have never heard in the Red Hot Chili Peppers discography. I think that some of the tracks, like I said, do kind of miss the mark. It's not always interesting. It's going to be a little bit too heady in the lyrical department for some listeners to take in just one sitting. It clocks in at about 55 minutes, which could hurt the replay factor for some people, including myself, just because I don't find every single song to be that engaging. But overall, I am pretty pleased with this release. I wasn't exactly sure what to expect after hearing the first two songs, loving the first one, being a little bit more mixed on the second one, but overall, I'm going with a 3.5 for The Getaway by Red Hot Chili Peppers. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of The Getaway. Don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the new Red Hot Chili Peppers record in the comments section. If there's other albums you'd like to see me tackle, let me know about them. Sound off in the comments. I feel like it's kind of a slow release season kind of coming up until maybe like early to mid July. So we'll see what we cover in the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned for more top 10 countdowns, potentially a new series launching on this channel. We're getting close to unlocking Throwback Thursdays on my Patreon account. If you would like to check that out, it's the top link in the description down below. You can donate, help unlock some new series, and of course, support ARTV. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon.